So we're continuing talking about different similes of the Buddha, and tonight actually it's a simile that one of the Buddha's disciples gives, and it's from the Nikaya, the collection of the long discourses. But I won't read an entire discourse because they are very long, which we often aren't drawing from. And this is from a sutta. It sort of gets subtitled Debate with a Skeptic. And it's Kumara Kassapa. That means young Kassapa. He's one of the disciples of the Buddha, actually foremost in preaching. And he's having a debate with a prince who thinks that there's no consequence to our actions. Very much wrong view. No consequence to our actions, no other world. Very materialist. And they have this debate where Kumara Kassapa continually gives him simile after simile after simile to try and help him see the error of his thinking and the error of his logic. And the simile that I am going to read is actually the last one that he gives. It's number 10. He's given him 9 other metaphors, parables. Well then, Prince, I will give you a parable, like another one. Once the inhabitants of a certain neighborhood migrated, and one man said to his friend, "Come along, let's go to that neighborhood. We might find something valuable." His friend agreed. So they went to that district and came to a village street, and there they saw a pile of hemp that had been thrown away, and one said, "Hey, here's some hemp. You make a bundle, I'll make a bundle, and we'll both carry it off." The other agreed, and they did so. Then, coming to another village street, they found some hemp thread, and one said, "This pile of hemp thread is just what we wanted the hemp for. Let's each throw away our bundle of hemp, and we'll go on with a load of hemp thread each." The other said, "I've brought this bundle of hemp a long way, and it's well tied up. That will do for me. You do as you like." So his companion threw away the hemp and took the hemp thread. Coming to another village street, they found some hemp cloth, and one said, "This pile of hemp cloth is just what we wanted the hemp or hemp thread for. You throw away your load of hemp, I'll throw away my load of hemp thread, and we'll go on with a load of hemp cloth each." But the other replied as before, "I've brought this bundle of hemp a long way, and it's well tied up. That'll do for me. You do as you like." So the one companion threw away the hemp thread and took the hemp cloth. In another village, they saw a pile of flax. Same thing happened. In another, linen thread. In another, linen cloth. In another, cotton. In another, cotton thread. In another, cotton cloth. It will end fairly soon. In another, iron. In another, copper. In another, tin. In another, lead. In another, silver. In another, gold. Then one said, and I mean, they'd had this conversation every single time, 15 different items. Then one said, "This pile of gold is just what we wanted the hemp, hemp thread, hemp cloth, flax, linen thread, linen cloth, cotton, cotton thread, cotton cloth, iron, copper, tin, lead, silver for. You throw away your load of hemp, I'll throw away my load of silver, and we'll both go on with a load of gold each." And what did this dear man say? "I've brought this load of hemp a long way, and it's well tied up. That will do for me. You do as you like." And this companion threw away the load of silver and took the load of gold. Then they came back to their own village, and there the one who brought a load of hemp gave no pleasure to his parents, nor to his wife and children, nor to his friends and colleagues. He did not even get any joy or happiness from it himself. But the one who came back with a load of gold pleased his parents, his wife and children, his friends and colleagues, and he derived joy and happiness from it himself as well. Such a great story. So, tonight, I want to draw some things out from this story, and I want to do it the way the Buddha always gives the teachings. You know, the Buddha always gives the bad news, like this: don't do this, don't, and then gives the good news. This is what you should do. You know, this is the wise thing to do. So obviously, we'll begin talking about this dear hemp holder honor, and I think. First of all, I just want to say that it's a parable. It's a metaphor. And so it's not talking about material stuff like, hey, let's trade up for this, you know. It's talking about sort of some of our habit energy, our habit patterns, our tendency, and some of the mechanisms of change. So I think two things for this hemp holder honor. One, we're all going to be able to relate to is it's just so much easier to do the path of least resistance. You know, it's just so much easier to stay with the known, to stay with the familiar. We all get in different kinds of ruts and grooves, and it's just easy because we're very used to it. You know, we even have an expression, you know, staying with the devil, you know. Even when we realize this isn't really working, this isn't really serving me, it's still quite a strong tendency in the human psyche. And just same old, same old. The second thing that we see with this hemp holder honor is this maybe is one of the historically earliest examples of what in business now is called the sunk cost fallacy, and it's a cognitive bias, and it affects our decision making, and just like the name, you know, it's this we've already invested into this, and so we just sort of hang on, even though it's not that beneficial. Like a definition of the sunk cost fallacy would be: a person is reluctant to abandon an item or a strategy or course of action because they've invested heavily in it, even when it's clear that abandonment would be more beneficial. So this sunk cost fallacy, and it's a cognitive bias. It does affect many of us, our decision making. You stick in a relationship, a friendship, you stick with a job, you know, many things that we just get stuck. So this sunk cost fallacy, and I mean, this is exactly what happens to this dear hemp holder honor. You know, he's saying, look, I brought this a long way, and besides, it's well tied up, you know, and he doesn't change. He just sort of, you almost get the impression he's like digging his heels in more and more each time he has the opportunity to exchange, to let go of that and get something that's much more valuable. So we'll go on to the good news and try and draw out some mechanisms of change. And we'll talk about the one who goes home with the gold. Yeah, we want to go home with the gold. Yeah. So I think the first thing is the most important, and it's we see it all the time in the Buddha's teachings, and that is that the most powerful mechanism of change for any of us in our lives is wisdom. It's when our our thinking gets influenced, our thinking gets changed, our value system gets influenced. And it's wisdom that is driving the fellow who gives up the hemp and then gives up the hemp thread and then gives up the hemp cloth. He's understanding the greater value of the next thing that's come across his path. And this is, we can all relate to this. I mean, this is how we've all ended up beginning to meditate, is that we've seen something that is of value, and therefore it's influencing our decisions, it's influencing our behavior. And Ajahn Brahm has a wonderful expression, to not use willpower, but to use wisdom power. And there's this amazing thing that happens on our spiritual path when it's no longer I should meditate. It's more like I need to meditate. I'm compelled. I want to meditate. I'm convinced. I've seen how my energy is. I've seen how my mood is. I've seen how my reactivity is on days that I've taken some time and meditated, and then I see the contrast when I don't, and it becomes something that we're really, there's a lot of buy-in. We get it, and it's something that we want in our lives, and we want to develop, and we want to cultivate. And when this wisdom component kicks in and strengthens, it provides tremendous motivation. And you really do see that when that becomes a mechanism of change, it still involves effort. The familiar is easier. It's just the path of least resistance. There's so for the person who's laying down the hemp, and they're having to let go of this familiar known quantity, and then they're having to put in some effort to rebundle this next item each time. There's a really good cognitive psychological test. It's usually given to children, and it's just a picture, and the child is asked what's going to happen. But you learn a lot from administering this test. And what it is, it's a picture of a cliff, and then there's a van with 5 people in the van, like leaning over the cliff. And you ask the child, what's going to happen? And if the child says, oh, the van's going to fall off the cliff, this is the hemp holder honor. This is the easy, no effort answer. Because to answer, oh, the van is going to be saved, then there's obviously a follow-up question: how? Now the child has to make effort. Oh, well, all the people are going to climb to the back of the van, and then someone's going to be able to get out, and then they're going to find a tree. You have to, it takes energy, it takes creativity, it takes planning and problem solving. So just being honest, if something is going to go against the path of least resistance, it is going to take effort on our part. And you see that with the hemp holder honor. He has to keep letting go and rebundling. But he's very, very motivated because of understanding the benefit understanding the value. And then this beautiful feedback loop. The Buddha's teachings are just infused with these feedback loops. And so there's beautiful feedback loop begins. We don't really value spiritual qualities usually until we've come in contact with maybe someone else that is practicing, or we've read a book, or we've heard some talk, and it gets us thinking, and part of it lands as being really, yeah, that makes sense, or that rings true. And the Buddha's clear that we don't really begin this is how we start, is by getting fresh input, by coming in contact with the teachings. But you come in contact with the teachings, and then this influences what you value. And then as you put more attention and energy and effort into your spiritual practice, that in turn starts to influence what you're valuing, and you start to value things like simplicity, and things like peace and harmony and ease, maybe more than you used to. Whereas before, a lot of us are looking to the outside for nourishment and meaning, like certain adventures or certain kinds of relationships, etc., etc. And those things are still in our lives, but we start to value spiritual qualities, and we start to grow in our spiritual life, and then that in turn starts to influence what we value. And it just becomes this wonderful feedback loop. The Buddha says, sort of captures all of this in Dhammapada verse, and it's very much highlighting this wisdom component of this mechanism of change. And it's Dhammapada verse 290. If by giving up a lesser happiness, one could experience greater happiness, a wise person would renounce the lesser, having regard for the greater. And this is a component of our spiritual life. There are certain lesser happinesses that we have to give up in order to gain the greater, An example would just be the lesser happiness of sleeping 20 minutes longer. Give that up, get up and meditate for 20 minutes or 25 or 30. That's a very simple, practical example, but this verse is addressing that, and really all the way along the path, where we're deriving greater and greater happinesses, and greater and greater benefit. So this paramount mechanism of change that hopefully is driving our whole meditation practice, which is this wisdom. The second thing that it's kind of not explicit in this parable, but I'm gonna draw it out, is another mechanism of change that the Buddha talks about a lot, is this the way that we are regarding ourselves, the way that we're holding ourselves. And when this is well, this is a powerful mechanism for change. And throughout the canon, there are these two Pali words that like many other Pali words, are almost entire concepts, hard to just translate into one word. And these two words in Pali, always, there's never a place where they appear on their own. They're always together. They come as a pair. And in Pali, they're the words hiri otapa. And hiri is this sense of moral consciousness. It's our conscience. And otapa is our moral concern, sort of our moral compass. And so hiri has somewhat a aspect of it that is looking back. So the conscience, like, oof, I wish I hadn't done that, or it would have been better if I didn't say that. That's hiri kicking in. And otapa is sort of has an aspect of looking forward. And so it's like, I don't think it's a good idea for me to stay so long with that person, like when I go to visit, because eventually things kind of devolve in the conversation and, their influence on me. This is otapa kicking in. It's like we have a moral concern that we want as much as possible to protect our hearts and protect our morality. It's almost got a flavor of a fear of wrongdoing, fear of misstepping. And so so I'm very much inferring it from the parable that the one who goes home with the gold had a better regard for themselves. The Buddha is saying that this is a very beautiful basis for growing more and more in our morality, in our purity, in our kindness, is to realize, I'm better than that. I can do better. It's a very it's got an energy of uplift, not at all a beating down of oneself. This is so clear in the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha calls hiri otapa, this moral conscience and moral concern, the bright guardians of the world. If these start to crack and fracture, is very, very serious for society. And we see this all the time throughout history and throughout different people's leadership. Hiri otapa. And interestingly, this teaching of the Buddha is now in a bestseller book. Some of you might know this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Came out about 6 years ago. And he talks about this. Like, he says in the book, you do not rise to the level of your goals. Like, it doesn't work. That isn't a powerful mechanism for change. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And he defines your systems as your identity, your view of yourself. So this whole idea of rising to a view of yourself where you're holding yourself with a great deal of esteem, like, this is the kind of mother I wish to be. And then at times when you're, low capacity, low resource, and you don't interact in the way that you are feeling like you wish to, again, in the Buddha's teachings, this is a very, it's not heavy, it's not pushed down, it's not guilt. Remorse is a hindrance, and it leads to restlessness. You just pick up and start again. This is so much in the Buddha's teaching. You just like make a repair and move forward. I'm just picking motherhood because it was very alive for me most of my life. Oof. Yeah. But all of us, like this is the kind of friend I wish to be. This is the kind of this is the kind of employee I wish to be. This is the kind of teacher. This is the kind of whatever it is. It's a rising to that view. Michelle Obama had such a great line, right? Like they when they go low, we go high. And that is, you see her well regard for herself and her husband in that. When they go low, we go high, because that's what we're capable of, and that's very beautiful. It's very honorable, beautiful, beautiful motivation, and like sustaining motivation, and it's like the wind at your back. And throughout the scriptures, when anyone sees that, oof, I didn't quite make it, when anyone sees a fault or a weakness or a failing in themselves, and comes to the Buddha and talks about it, the Buddha always says, this is growth. This is growth in your spiritual life. Growth that you see, and that you're admitting it, and move forward. It's very beautiful. As a monastic, we have all of these rules, and when you are living with another monastic, every moon day, it's called bringing things out into the open. You get together, and not like I forgive another monastic. I just witness them cleaning out, any rules that they've broken. Is you just bring them out into the open, and then whoosh, they're gone. Start anew every 2 weeks. So it's very, very beautiful system for our human psychology. And the third thing is very explicit in the story. It's always the first two, wisdom and how we're regarding ourselves. These are very much intrinsic motivations, and always the most powerful. And we are social beings, and we live interdependently. So the third mechanism of change is more extrinsic, and that's that when we are growing in our spiritual lives, this is of great benefit to ourselves, and in the story, great benefit to the parents and the spouse and the children and the friends and the colleagues, and to themselves. The dear person who went home with the gold gave great joy and pleasure, and was feeling it themselves. And that poor dear hemp holder honor brought no joy, even to himself. It's like, I really blew it. Yeah. Oh, geez. What was I thinking? I brought it a long way, and it's tied up well. Yeah, but it's kind of useless. Anyway. And then the fourth thing that is so clear in this story is that this is a gradual training. This is a gradual path. this person changes bit by bit by bit by bit, you know. The hemp, and then it's not a big jump to the copper. No, hemp, then the hemp thread, then the hemp cloth, etc., etc., etc. And this is what happens for all of us in our spiritual journey. That it's just bit by bit by bit. We're wearing away our defilements. We're wearing away our greed, our aversion, bit by bit by bit. The way that water, affects rock. It takes a long time, but it actually happens and it actually works. The Dalai Lama, apparently, we hear all these stories about the Dalai Lama, and I wasn't there, and I've never heard him say this, but I've heard many Dhamma teachers repeat this story that apparently he said when asked about his own progress, his own spiritual life. He said, if I look back a few months, if I look back a year, sometimes if I look back 5 years, but if I look back 10 years, I see so much growth and change. And if I look back 20, an amazing amount, bit by bit by bit. So I'm going to end tonight with what I think is really encouraging. It is a simile of the Buddha, and it's from the Connected Discourses. It's in book 22, and it's Sutta 101. And the Buddha says, when meditators, a carpenter or a carpenter's apprentice looks at the handle of their adze, this is one of their tools, like it's a bit like an axe or a pick. When they look at the handle of their adze, they see the impressions of their fingers and their thumb, but they don't know. So much of the adze handle has been worn away today, so much yesterday, so much earlier. But when it has worn away, the knowledge occurs to them that it has worn away. And it's true, right? Like you probably all have tools or something that has this impression because it's been worn away. What we have here in the monastery is all these wooden spoons that are all worn away in different ways, from scraping along the bottom of the pot, that they're thin where the wood handle goes onto the pot edge. But we don't know, so much got worn away today. No, not at all. But it is worn away. And our spiritual life is like that. Just bit by bit by bit. We don't know, this much greed got worn away today. But if we stay at it, eventually we'll look back and be like, oh my gosh, I just had this encounter, and it would have been so different had it been X amount of years ago. I'm like becoming a different person. Yeah. So I'll end there. I find that simile extremely encouraging, and we've got several minutes. If anyone has any questions or comments, very, very welcome. Yes, Julie.
You mentioned the gradual path, but nothing in the story precludes the possibility that he could have taken his hemp and swapped out for the gold at any time, or not at any time.
At the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's just the multiple opportunities through life,
Mm-hmm.
and the possibility for greater changes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. and sometimes that happens, and sometimes that happens, especially with like a dramatic event.
If you would.
With a dramatic event, sometimes there'll be quite a shift for someone. Yes. But our tendency with our psychology is to for things to be quite gradual. Yes, Ronnie.
In the book, if you don't, like, you're saying it's like you can't change your identity. I didn't really understand what the point of that book was then. Like, how do you make change if it's not your looking towards your identity and changing?
I think James Clear in Atomic Habits, he's talking about if you really want to make a change, and even Atomic Habits is like very much about a little bit, gradual, making these changes. But he says that it's much more powerful if you're wanting to become more organized, or if you're wanting to become, I'll just use more organized, that rather than setting a goal, he says it's much more useful to work with your identity of yourself. Because a lot of times, if we're thinking we need to become more organized, we have a self view that we're not very organized. We're not a very organized person. So you want to work with that, with your self identity, your self view, and the Buddha says that as well.
And how do you do that? Like just to say, oh, I'm more organized.
Oh, I think that you look at different. You'd break being organized down into different qualities and look at the ways that you do have that in your life, etc., etc., etc. You work with the way that you're regarding yourself, the way that you're holding yourself, the way that you're viewing yourself. You work there. Rather, and again, this is something that's very from the inside out versus from the outside in. It's much more powerful. Ellie.
Hi, Ayya.
Hey.
I find it very interesting, actually, that was very good timing, as timing always goes. And I think it was about a week ago, I realized just how insidious certain bad habits can really be on you. Just the same way that, um, change is gradual towards the positive, it can also be gradual towards the negative.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was hearing or watching a film about crime, and this person was forcefully involved into something she didn't want to do, but little bit by little bit, they kidnapped this person, and she didn't want it, but she did it anyways. And so, okay, well, I'll just do a little bit more. Oh, darn, now I have to do a little bit more. And then just by saying yes, slightly, a little bit here, a little bit more gradual, you really can de-virtue become unvirtuous just as much as you can become virtuous the other way around, right? And I find Mara can really work very, very in very subtle ways that way, I find.
This is a very good point. Caleb.
Sometimes I know what the greater happiness is, but I don't take it. So how do I facilitate the process of shifting to the greater happiness and letting go of what keeps me stuck with the mindsets, habits, attitudes, outlooks that keep me less happy than I could be?
Oof, that's such a good question, Caleb. I would appreciate anyone else as well. The one thing I'm thinking of right now is to just do it like within 1 hour, like instead of be thinking about your whole life or this whole year, just within 1 hour. Things like, people that work on a computer, a lot of times they know if I would just each hour take 3 minutes off the screen, and have a drink of water. And I think just like making it small and concrete, and then also setting yourself up for success, like then having some kind of beeper go off or something, and then sticking to it, standing up, turning away, looking out the window, or opening the door and breathing fresh air, doing a little shaking, whatever. And then really registering. Rick Hansen talks about this, pausing in the positive, not just be like, and then when you go back to sit down, be like, oh wow, yeah, well, my shoulders have gone down, and my that I think I would. That's one possibility. Make things very concrete, very quite small. Set yourself up for success, and then really take note of the benefit and put a lot of focus on that. And say you're working for 8 hours and you only do it 6 of the hours. Put the focus there. Well, like, I didn't make it. I didn't do it. Be like, whoa, I was like, 6 hours more than I was yesterday, and that kind of thing. That's one possibility. I think another one that is very much in the suttas is being around other like-minded people, being around spiritual friends, being around wise companions that are promoting that in your life, and encouraging it and noticing it and valuing it. That also strengthens, our buy-in, our just sort of keeps us going in the right direction. Yeah. Other people's ideas. Jocelyn.
Something that came up or has been really powerful and changed for me is seeing the nuance as opposed to the novelty, and craving and desiring novelty, getting the next mountain, climbing the next thing, or skiing a certain line, etc. Like, it's more now about peeling apart the things that I have and seeing the beauty in it, and like the birds in the trees, and it's been beautiful for me.
Very cool. Yeah. That's great. Did you hear that, everyone? Like, instead of like, a lot of emphasis on the newness and the novelty, and we all have that. We're all very addicted to beginning new. Jocelyn was talking about putting a lot of emphasis and noticing, paying attention to nuance, and like peeling apart the experiences that she has had, and the things that she does have, and seeing more and more the fulfillment of those and the beauty of those. It's like the whole, stop and smell the flowers, like starting to realize that that there's so much in the little things. So much in the little things. I was reading this book, this naturalist, he had a 4-year-old son, and he took him to the Grand Canyon, and they're standing on the edge, and the naturalist is like just sort of so absorbed, and then he looks at his son, and he notices his son is completely enthralled with these little rocks and the grass, like the ground, not even looking at the view. Yeah. The little things. At my parents' 50th wedding anniversary, my dad, he was quite a good public speaker. He was a teacher his whole life. He stood up and said, "Yes, well, when Shirley and I got married, we decided that she would make all the small decisions and I would make the big ones." He goes, "So far there haven't been any big decisions." 50 years in, 4 children later. Yeah. But it is true, the little things. Yeah.
That's cute. That's really sweet.
Yeah, it was very funny. Okay, Ellie, yes.
I find that finding something to commit to memory helps a lot also, because you're kind of forcing yourself, you're putting the effort to memorize something so that you're constantly thinking about it. And the more you think about it, the more you remember it, the more you're noticing it around for yourself, the more you're noticing it around with others. For example, if I'm committing the paramis, the 10, what's the paramis again?
Yep, 10 paramis. 10
Yeah,
perfections, yeah.
the perfections, yes. So if I'm committing those to memory, then I'm noticing that people are more generous. I'm noticing that I'm generous with my time, because that's all I think about. I go to bed. If I think about that, I'll wake up thinking about that instead of thinking about the movie I was watching. If you don't, so doing
Yeah.
these little things, I find helps keep your mind engaged in the right direction.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay.
What week are we on? Digha?
Third, I think.
Okay.
Oh dear.
Digha.
Oh, yeah, I blew it. We'll do it next week. Let's go to the fifth. We'll do it next week.
Do equanimity.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll end with a meditation on equanimity, upekkha. So start by bringing to mind a neutral person in your life, somebody you don't have strong feelings of love or hate towards, and direct these phrases to them. You are the owner of your karma. Your happiness and unhappiness depend upon your actions, not upon my wishes for you. I care for you as a suffering human being, but I cannot keep you from suffering. I wish you true happiness, but I cannot make your choices for you. Now think of someone who's been very supportive of you and send the phrases to them. You are the owner of your karma. Your happiness and unhappiness depend upon your actions, not upon my wishes for you. I care for you as a suffering human being, but I cannot keep you from suffering. I wish you true happiness, but I cannot make your choices for you. Now think of a friend and send the phrases to them. You are the owner of your karma. Your happiness and unhappiness depend upon your actions, not upon my wishes for you. I care for you as a suffering human being, but I cannot keep you from suffering. I wish you true happiness, but I cannot make your choices for you. And now bring to mind someone that you have a difficult relationship with and send the phrases to them. You are the owner of your karma. Your happiness and unhappiness depend upon your actions, not upon my wishes for you. I care for you too, as a suffering human being, but I cannot keep you from suffering. I wish you too true happiness, but I cannot make your choices for you. And now we'll send the phrases to ourselves. I am the owner of my karma. My happiness and unhappiness depend on my actions, not on my wishes or hopes. I care for myself, and I am determined to follow the path of peace, the Noble Eightfold Path. I wish myself happiness, and I am determined to make skillful choices. All beings are owners of their karma. The happiness and unhappiness of all beings depends upon their actions, not upon my wishes for them. I care for all beings, but I cannot keep them from suffering. I wish all beings true happiness, but I cannot make their choices for them. May the merit of our practice be shared with all sentient beings, named and unnamed. Please, Blair, Siman, Mudita. May all beings be well and happy.